Founded in 1999 by Jason Burks, Retrospec Films is Oklahoma's largest turnkey production company of its kind. With over 2 decades of experience, a full-time team of over 20 talented individuals, a 12,000 square foot studio to create in, and thousands of successfully completed projects in both entertainment and advertising. You're in the right place if you like hearing some good old filmmaking stories. On this podcast, we will discuss the pursuit of creating things and the problems we solve by digging up projects from across the last 20 years and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes where the magic happens. You're listening to Retrospec Films from the Archives.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on Retrospec from the Archives. This is our in-house podcast where we dig up old projects from the past and we dissect them, talk about all the filmmaking skills that we put into it, the problems that we solve, etc., etc., etc. Today, I am joined by Jacob Paul Hightower.
Hello.
Right here in the knitted sweater all the way from the United Kingdom.
This was an actual sweater. I had it formed into a shirt, a polo.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
You look very European today.
Yeah. Is it from
Thank you.
From Aberdeen? And Brandon Forbes, producer.
I just have a shirt on.
You do a lot of things, but you wear normal clothes.
Yeah.
So nothing
I can't
too
pull off certain
eccentric.
things.
But your wife loves you just as much as any wife's ever loved anybody.
Thank God somebody does.
Yeah, and your kid, he thinks you're the only man that exists.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it that way. Just making sure that he thinks I'm like the coolest, because if he sees anybody else, he's going to be like, this
crap,
guy.
my dad's not cool.
No, this guy sucks.
Oh, man. Well, today we are pulling up a project from the past, a couple years back. And this was a very, very unique project. So I'm gonna tell the story of how it began, and then we can dig into the details of how we did it.
I know they only take big trips, they only get the works, they don't really type it. All the way up in first, they only make big plans. You never get a cut, they do the runaround better than you do. But I know that I always say never. And they always stay together, and they always say they'll be there, and they always come together.
I believe it started with an email, I think, to me, most likely. And it was a guy from California. And he said, I'm looking to film a shot on iPhone promotional video for Apple with a band that's in Tulsa. And I looked up production companies, found you guys, and I'd be curious about collaborating. And so, of course, we're like, wait, work for like Apple, like, you know, Apple at a Cupertino, like that would be a cool client to put on the list. And you know, my first instinct usually is when things are like East Coast, West Coast, I kind of assume that whomever I'm working with is going to be difficult or not fun to work with because that's common in those markets. But like we got on a phone call. I remember we were in Florida on our company trip.
Yeah.
And we huddled around, got on a phone with Richard. And Richard was the coolest dude ever. Like the nicest guy you've ever met. I was like, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
He's a director. He actually owns a production company similar to ours in New Mexico now. Really, really good dude. And we just hit it off. Like we just immediately were like, yeah, working with this guy's gonna be great if we can just make sure to do what he needs so that he feels like he was taken care of. And so we voyaged down this road, and the basic ask, which was a little crazy for myself as a director of photography, was we want to shoot a music video with a storyline, with a band, with a fight scene, with dark, dramatic lighting and etc., fire, lots of dynamic range, all these things. With iPhones, only with iPhones.
Yeah.
And you can use lens adapters and put lenses in front of those iPhones, but you're only shooting with iPhones. And it was a brand new iPhone that hadn't released yet. I can't remember. Was it the?
It was the 10.
It was the 10.
iPhone
so it
10.
was a grand
Yes.
release for iPhone, the iPhone 10, which I still have an iPhone 10.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
you need to get.
It's fine. I love it.
It's 5 years old.
I love my iPhone 10.
Upsetting.
But I'm gonna get a new one eventually.
There's a notification that pops up and literally like every day tells him he has to get a new phone.
I've been thinking about it for several years. And I'm still thinking about
You're still
it.
thinking
hey,
about it.
go strong.
So, talk a little bit about this concept, then maybe we can get into the producing and the production, because it was a heck of a feat. It'll be hard to cover this in under 20 minutes. The idea was a storyline similar to
The Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
Yep.
And you've got the two forces, and you've got but it was with girls. And it would collide into a giant brawl. And this brawl would be like I guess in that movie, it's
The Greasers.
the Greasers and the
Socs.
Soch,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we needed the Soch to have Lamborghinis and Maseratis and
Mercedes-Benz.
Yep.
and, you know, leather jackets that are posh. And then we needed our Greasers to be grungy and grimy and chains and
Old trucks.
black leather
Yeah.
and old trucks and all that stuff. Meanwhile, our band is BRONCHO. And what's the lead singer's name again?
Ryan.
Brian.
Ryan, yeah.
Brian or Ryan?
No, it's
Ryan.
Ryan.
Sorry.
Who, if you don't know BRONCHO, they're awesome. They have some great songs, and Ryan's hilarious. He's like
Oh,
the
yeah.
nicest guy you've ever met. So super cool dude. So we have this scope of what we're gonna do. So I don't accelerate through the whole thing too much. Brandon, I want to hand it over to you because you produced this thing, and I want to get some of your thoughts on which, you know, you don't normally freak out over stuff, but this was a large scope.
Yeah. and
Very,
this was,
very, very large scope. Like so talk a little bit about some of the aspects that were needed and the locations, the props, the people. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, it was in 2018 of like fall of 2018. And so
Yeah.
I was, you know, I had just kind of started like stepping into like producing more. And this was like, okay, it's for Apple and it's for like BRONCHO, and there's a director coming out of Los Angeles, like all these like things. I was like, okay, this is kind of crazy. And I think one of the biggest, like the first thing was the location, because that was basically based on everything. And we had this, I don't even know what it used to be, but you know, now I'm pretty sure it's like BMX headquarters.
It was a still factory.
It
Yeah.
was a steel factory that
Yep.
was like on the outside of downtown Tulsa, and was like the perfect location. And I think through connections that we've just had with different like city officials,
That
we
was a
were
GT call.
Yeah,
Yep.
we were just able to scout it, and then like the moment we scouted it, it was like, okay, yeah, this is perfect. But there's no power, and it, you know, there had been like homeless camps there, and lots of like just dangerous stuff too. Like
Sure.
glass had to get cleaned up, just stuff for safety reasons. And then it was like, okay, well, this is going to be great, but now we need to cast was like 20 females, like 10 on either side, and then we need sports cars and old vintage cars, and we need them to run, and we're going to be racing them, and then we're going to be lighting cans on fire. It's like all of this stuff, and we're just like, yeah, and then we have to do it in one day. Like, okay, cool, sounds
And
good.
inside in a building.
Inside in a
Trash
building.
fires in a building. Yep.
Yes. So, I mean, it was a mixture of just everybody calling everybody that they knew. We had lots of contacts that had, they have the G-Wagons or these old cars. I remember we did a big casting call, did it out in the studio, and had, Richard and I were there. One thing I don't think we even talked about is that all the while we're filming a behind the scenes with the iPhone as well, not with lenses on it. And so like we're having to capture all the pre-pro with that, because we sat there and just had the iPhone rolling all day on like watching all of these female. It was an all-female cast, which was like another kind of like caveat. They, instead of it being, and the song was called Big City Boys. And so it's this kind of like you're twisting it and making it, a little different and a little kind of punchy towards the audience. We had the cars, we had the talent. We had fire department there. We had EMS there. We did fight choreography ahead of time. Had to bring in a fight choreographer for crash pads, because there's this one scene where they start fighting and the camera's just going back, and it's like as it goes back, like more people just fill the scene. They just keep fighting and fighting. But then you also have these $100,000 sports cars that you've got in this warehouse that is,
I think we had a $200,000 sports
like,
car.
falling apart, and you're like telling
Lamborghini.
like these talent, like, please don't hurt the cars.
Yeah.
Like these are expensive. And so it's just all this stuff that like, I mean, it came together, and it was pouring rain that day, which didn't help because there was some exterior stuff that we were getting outside. Luckily, the majority of it was in the building. It was cold, so we had heaters. I mean, it was just like everything that, I would think that you would be like, yeah, like we would have a huge, a crew of like 50 people, and we'd use a couple days, and be like, no, like I think we did it with our team plus maybe like I think 3 like freelance. I mean, it's our standard freelance guys that we've worked with forever.
Yep.
And I think it was just like, okay, yeah, like Richard can come here and he can trust us, and like we're gonna knock it out of the park, and it's gonna be great, but we'll do it our way.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I mean, like at the end of the day, we finished, and it was like, it was probably like a 14, 16-hour day, but like we captured everything. And I mean, the footage was awesome. The music video was awesome. And I think, Apple was there with their people, and they were super happy with it. And it was just kind of like, at the end, I was like, don't think about that we're working for Apple. Just don't think about it too much, because you're going to get stressed out. But then at the end, it was like, okay, we actually did it. We pulled it off.
Yeah. Hightower, talk a little bit about, and surely we have some behind the scenes photos, but the prepping, which was interesting, because I remember always coming over to the camera car, because I think it was you. Was it just you and me shooting, or was anyone else shooting?
I think it was you and me and Adam.
Okay.
And he might have been just shooting the BTS stuff.
And but you and I had rigs.
Yeah, we had shoulder rigs.
They were all built out.
I think we had three or 4 iPhones total. One was on a gimbal.
Yep.
2 was built out, and we shot it with handheld rigs and like Beast Grip adapters to where we could put our Zeiss lenses on it. So we're shooting at an aperture of 1.4 on these iPhones and trying to figure out how this focus works with it. And it was a learning curve. I mean, we were like, I'm like, how do you put a lens on top of another lens and make it work? And it just did. I remember like getting the 85 on there, and I was like, oh my gosh, this has so much depth of field.
Yep.
That I was just not used to on any iPhone. I mean, I think this was before even that portrait mode came out.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
and
we used Filmic Pro, which was like they had just kind of launched that, and where you could shoot like log, and you could dial in your shutter speed. You were like shooting with a real camera.
We were. I mean, it was all new to me. I mean, I'm used to like shooting little things on my iPhone, and I thought that was at first I thought that's all we were gonna do, and I'm like, how are we gonna do this? We're just going to shoot it on iPhones, and it's going to be no depth of field or anything. Everything's going to be in focus. But when I found out that we're actually going to get to use our good lenses, our good Zeiss lenses, I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And then, yeah, we had handheld rigs. We're focusing the lenses out, and yeah, it was just something else. I mean, you don't really think of that as a practical like handheld rig.
Yeah.
It's just an iPhone, but the imagery that we got. I mean, we even put one on a slider when
Yep.
they're doing that cherry scene in the Lamborghini.
Yep.
And then the fire overlay that comes in that, you
Yeah.
know, kudos to our editors out there that
Yeah.
put that together. And then, yeah, it's just a learning curve trying to shoot with an iPhone,
Yeah.
a cellular phone.
It was kind of funny because, you know, I mean, I guess I should only say good about the iPhone because they're the ones that hired us. But I remember in there thinking, oh man, I hate that we're constructing these giant sets and all these actors and all these
Yeah.
cars, and I'm filming it with an iPhone. You
Yeah.
know? But none of it would have happened without Apple. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and to that point, it's still like there was still lots of shots. I mean, it looks great. Like it plays on loop in our lobby.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of mesmerizing to me when I stop and watch it. In fact, it's kind of funny because if you think about it, like even that I think led a little bit to the confidence I had when I eventually shot Love on the Rocks on an iPhone.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, well, we shot that music video and it turned out good. So like, why can't we shoot a TV show?
It's surprising because you can show that to people and not tell them it was shot on iPhone and show it to them, and they're like, oh, what red did you use?
All right.
And it's like, we shot it on iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
how good it turned out.
And it was also funny too because you see like when iPhone will announce a new phone and it's like this was all shot on iPhone. It's like
Yeah.
a handful of that stuff. Yeah, it is actually shot just bare iPhone
Right.
and whatnot. But like they were the ones that sent us the rig with the
The-
adapters.
yeah, and all
like
that
they
stuff.
sent that. So it's like
Yeah.
okay, like
Yeah.
there's you got to peek behind the veil a little bit and be
Yeah.
like no,
Yeah.
like it's shot. Yes, it's
There's some
shot
stuff.
on the iPhone,
Yeah.
but it's helped.
I do just to point out the craft a little bit because I feel like filmmaking. There was a time and day where people believed filmmaking. It was really like all about the camera, Like, and there's a truth when you weren't shooting with lenses that created depth of field. If you were shooting with depth of field, like on a 16 mil film camera or a 35 mil film camera, a tremendous advantage, right? Like people would be like, that looks like a movie, that looks like a soap opera, you know?
Yeah.
And frame rate, same too. When
Yep.
when you were able to get to 24p, it was like that looks like a movie, and if it was 60i or 30i, you're like that looks like a soap opera or a news broadcast.
Yep.
You know, technology, rounding 2000, 2002 caught up to the point that I really think it's been a good thing because what it has allowed is to separate the true craft. Because I've never wanted to believe that the craft of filmmaking had to do with owning something that someone else couldn't afford.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's like, well, what's that? And so I think it's been kind of fun. Like to me, this Apple project was a unique proof, for myself as a director of photography, but for our entire team as a production company of what makes a good story and what makes good cinema. And I can tell you it is a combination of casting the right people and picking the right location and having the right wardrobe and having the right props and using the camera in a way that makes the story interesting. All these little factors that many times, like, and I'm not picking on anybody, but I've certainly known people that went out and bought a brand new camera and sent me their reel and it was terrible. And the camera they had was great. And it was like, it's not the camera, guys. And so I think this project was just proof. It's like, when you watch this, you go, dude, that is amazing. You shot that on an iPhone in 2018. Like, there's probably people today that wish they could shoot something that looked that good on a $20,000 camera.
Yeah.
I did want to bring to note, this was before we transitioned over to any of our LEDs too. So the generators that we had to have, I think we had two M18s. We had
We did.
4 2Ks.
We had a 5K.
We had a 5K.
They were
a
all
bunch
just
of 1Ks.
lining outside in the pouring rain.
Literally, yeah, we had umbrellas over our generators
Yep.
that were powering these lights, and now we can operate off of batteries, and you can still operate off of generators, just a lot more lights. But we were figuring that out.
Yeah, there is so much to be said. I mean, I could talk too long about it, but just I'm thankful to be my age because I got to live through at least a couple iterations of filmmaking, like being able to use a 60 kW and bust out a 10K Fresnel and know how to do that is nice, even though it's so rare. You know,
Yeah.
today it's like, oh, we got a aperture 1200.
Yep.
It's like,
Now we're good.
we have it. That's great. But like, I also have a 5K back there on the shelf if we need it.
Yep, exactly.
Which I appreciate.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
well, I'm trying to think what else we might add to this. I mean, I think in completion, I mean, it turned out really good. Edit was smooth, and you know, the footage is awesome. You know, Katie, who we casted as like the lead girl, she did awesome, and Shelby, who was like the leader of the other side, she did incredible. The cars were incredible. You know, Richard killed it, and was just so. I think that's one of the things that I would take away from that project more than anything is like just building good relationships with good people.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to Richard last year, and he gave me an update on all the things he's doing in Albuquerque. And so it's fun being able to have those relationships.
I remember he gave me a book and I read it, and it was just it was awesome, and he had such a cool relationship here at Retro. I remember he was like on the edit couch for like 3 weeks or something. And I think by the end it was like he didn't want to leave.
He's just a part of the team.
Yeah, he's just a part of the team at that point, which is really cool. We can make those relationships, and thank you, Apple, to let us be able to do this. So.
It was awesome.
We know you're watching Apple right now.
Yeah, you watch
probably.
every episode.
Even Steve from Up in Heaven is hopefully watching this as well.
Thanks,
Appreciate you, Steve.
Yep.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. I maybe somewhere in there we fired the video off. I meant to cue it up and I forgot to.
Let's just cue it up now.
Cue it up now. Roll that video.
No, not again.
That's it for this episode of Retrospect from the Archives. Thanks so much for joining us. If you liked what you watched, you're interested in filmmaking, we've got over 30 episodes on our website, retrospectfilms.com. You can check those out. They're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the different places, and we cover a whole wide range of all sorts of projects. So we appreciate you spending some time with us, and we hope we'll see you on some other episodes in the future. Peace out.
Bye.